Let's podcast somewhat sober. Alongside Joe Chilio, I'm Joe Ovias inside Eford Studios in downtown Raleigh. Big thanks to Copiers Plus. Check them out online, copiers-plus.com. They're certainly getting their bang for their buck as NC State is off to the Final Four. I think we've had a little bit more time to process what we witnessed last night at the Rialto. Big thanks to Hayes Permar for hosting us so that we could do the podcast in real time after the fact, after a few 40s, champagne, drunk Brinson. That's a YouTube exclusive. If you're looking for the podcast of that one, that's not something that audio can handle. That is a YouTube only. You have to watch it. You have to experience the full thing. You just have to watch it. So we'll just give you the full podcast today. Now that you've had some time to sleep on it, drink a little coffee, Joe. Thoughts on what we witnessed last night with NC State getting past Duke?
Well, it's still amazing. That's number one. You think about it, that they've won 9 games now.
Mm-hmm.
In the way that they've won the games continues to be the most amazing part to me.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing fluky about the entire run was O'Connell's 3 against Virginia. And as our friend Brett Strelo had tweeted, just consider the butterfly effect of McNeely missing that free throw.
Yes.
The game's over if an 80% free throw shooter makes a shot. So there is some 83 in that. But other than that one shot, the way that NC State has beaten teams has been a very simple formula. They've stayed on schedule. They've stayed out in front. They've defended. They've defended like that's the only way they know how to win.
Yeah.
And that's the big part of it for them is the defensive end. Interesting, though. I keep waiting for NC State to have this heater from the 3-point line. Like, surely the only way they could win is by some miracle of getting hot. Like all of those years of C.C. Harrison and Courtney Fells and Engen Atzer and like even Al Freeman on Kevin's first team, right? Like surely the only way NC State's capable of doing anything is by some heater from the 3-point line.
Yeah.
Well, the truth of the matter is they haven't shot the ball that well in these 2 tournaments. And they're still winning. It's funny on the yellow pad here. I have their 3-point numbers in these 9 games. The 2 worst games were the Virginia game from the 3-point line and yesterday's win over Duke.
Mm-hmm.
They made exactly 3 3-pointers in each of those games. And Mike O'Connell made the biggest one in both, in my opinion. I thought O'Connell's 3 yesterday, after Duke had cut it back to 48-42 with 7 minutes left, was truly the point in that game where it was like, okay, State's going to win this game. State's going to the Final Four.
You had asked that question going into the game that State has essentially been in control, right? And the real test for the team was going to be, how do they handle being down? How do they handle a deficit? And Duke looked locked in, man. Locked in.
Duke only gave up 21 points in the first half.
They looked locked in going to halftime. And, I was kind of sitting there making the mental note. I'm like, okay, you know what? Looks like this run's going to end, because the storyline's going a couple different ways, because there's a Duke perspective to this as well that we're going to get to in a larger conversation about winners and losers from the NCAA tournament. But, I'm making this mental note of, hey, man, here's John Shire in year 2 doing something as a young Duke coach. I mean, don't get me wrong, like things are there set up for him to succeed at Duke, but that doesn't mean you actually go out there and you succeed. I mean, we've seen this at Carolina, where everything is there for you to succeed, and you don't in the case of Matt Doherty. But
how about Kentucky?
Right? I mean, yeah, what more do you need at Kentucky, right? Everything is there for you, literally. And John Shire was going to go from his rookie season as a head coach to winning the ACC championship and then getting knocked out and kind of bullied out by Tennessee, but bouncing back, a group that had been up and down all season. But you know what? This is all that, very similar to NC State. Do you have it when it matters? And it looked like Duke, with a little bit of bracket luck, might have gone to the Final Four. But instead, it's NC State, which gets to something that I did not think a week ago, but I've changed my mind. And I do think that NC State is a Cinderella story.
Okay.
They might not want to hear that. But a week ago, I agreed with Matt Norlander of CBS Sports, who's like, yeah, look, in this day and age, a Cinderella comes from a mid-major, right? You don't have those things there for you. You're beating the big boys, and here you go. But as we got further away from last week and then beating Duke the way that they did to get to the Final Four, the fact that it's happened 9 games in a row, where NC State was and where Kevin Keatts was when the whole thing started going into DC, I can't come away thinking anything else other than they're a Cinderella. Think about this. NC State is the belle of the ball now. Basketball enthusiasts knew who DJ Burns was. We knew who DJ Burns was. We know the DJ Burns story. As Bomani Jones jokingly referred to him on his podcast, the chubby baller. And America loves a chubby baller, but it never really graduated beyond just regional stuff. He's this national phenomenon. Is that not a glass slipper fitting on and you becoming the belle of the ball? I mean, Jokic is talking about how he was late to a press conference because he was watching DJ Burns in the end of that game. And of course, DJ Burns is like, wait, huh, what? Like, he was pretty shocked by that. You also look at NC State specifically. You have to look at State specifically. Let's strip away the Power 5 connotation and everything else. You're an ACC school. I get all that stuff. But NC State is typically viewed as an afterthought in the triangle. They're viewed as outside of State fans, obviously. But when you talk about college basketball, it is Duke, it is Carolina, and NC State can't seem to get out of its own way. They're picked over. Carolina fans don't even want to admit they're a rival. You got Theo Pinson saying these types of things. Yeah, there's a little bit of a rivalry there with Duke, but it's not the same thing. They're just an afterthought in the grand scheme of things. And now they are the center of attention. Again, they are the belle of the ball, which is the whole point of Cinderella. Where were you before? Rags to riches. Because again, part of the story and part of the reason why I think everybody's having a hard time processing this is when it all started, it was very much a real conversation about whether or not Kevin Keatts was going to be the head coach next season. Straight up. And I know you and I talked about it ad nauseum about the financial considerations and things like that. But Kevin Keatts has absolutely changed the conversation. This team has completely changed the conversation, unlike any other team in America right now. And it also gets to the heart of NC State. I got a little feedback from folks last night where it was like, yeah, you guys kind of let it rip last night. You guys getting swept up in the vibes and everything else. And my response to that would be, what else are you supposed to do? I mean, this is a team that hasn't made the Final Four since 1983. And when they made it in 1983, and when they got there in 1983, it was once again a situation where it swept up America. You have Survive and Advance, right? There's a whole documentary called that, thanks to Derek Wittenberg, Survive and Advance. What more do you want out of this group that literally is surviving? Kevin Keatts is surviving. He survived. He kept his job. He locked it in. It completely changed the conversation. So if you look at State on its own level, NC State continues to do this thing where they capture folks' imagination. They capture their own fan base. They talk about magical runs. How many text messages did you get last night from people?
Hundreds.
Hell, man, Lumpy FaceTimed us last night. Shout out to Lumpy, who I used to go to school with when we were at NC State. We worked at WKNC together, and he's out, out in Highlands, North Carolina, Highland hiker, right? And I'll get a text from Lumpy from time to time. That dude called me, man. That's what this is about. And we were at Rialto last night, and you saw everybody swept up in it. That is very much a part of the NC State identity when it comes to basketball. That's why people fall in love with NC State the way that they do, because you have these types of memories. And as you said last night, and I put it out there on the clip, and why we work with Breaking Tea to do a shirt that says feels like 24, NC State fans have not had a moment like this that they get to live through. They only hear the stories. Now they get this particular story to get to the Final Four. And that's why I think they ultimately do classify as a Cinderella. I don't know what other boxes you need checked. And if you want to play the actually game, because they're a Power 5 school, they're from the ACC. They have way more facilities and resources than these mid-major schools. I would point back that there are mid-major schools that have more commitment to basketball than some Power 5 schools do. So we have to get away from this idea that mid-majors somehow qualify you in a different category. No, because there's a lot of mid-major schools, as we see with Gonzaga and whatnot, that are routinely in this position that NC State can't find themselves in for a variety of reasons. And it goes beyond just having Duke and Carolina next door in the tough neighborhood. So all this is my long-winded way of saying, yeah, NC State's a Cinderella. And if you want to get it on a technicality, cool. You're not fun at parties, in my opinion. I mean, it's just as simple as that. You're the guy.
It's almost like we should create a new name. Because I feel like the default is to call them a Cinderella.
Sure.
Right? and the famous call from Gary Dorn from '83.
The glass
slipper fits Cinderella. And even that team, it created March Madness. That's what 1983 NC State did.
Is this not the definition of March Madness?
This is madness, but again, the way that they're winning is they're dominant. Like they dominated Marquette. The only game in this tournament that they didn't dominate and win by double digits, checks math here, was Oakland.
Yeah.
The overtime game. So, Marquette, they only ended up beating by 9, but quite frankly, they dominated Marquette in that basketball game. And that's the issue I would have. I'm not sitting here like, I don't want to argue with you over Cinderella and what Cinderella means and all this other stuff. I would just say it's more of a generalization to say, oh, they're Cinderella because they're an 11 seed. They're the first team with 14 losses to make the Final Four. All of those things are true, but they're not winning like a Cinderella. They're not even winning like a team on a heater, right? Like UConn ran through the tournament with Kemba Walker, and it was Kemba Walker. Like that guy went bonkers, right? You can look at DJ Burns and go, oh, no, DJ Burns has been really good. Dude had 4 points against Marquette. So how do you explain it? Right? So it's not just one guy. It's not just, one way that they're winning. And again, going back to the O'Connell shot against Virginia, that's really the only fluky, lucky part about any of this. So that's where I would slightly push back and just say there's probably a better term that we could create for them. But I'll say this for this team, they're unique. Yeah, they're one of one. And that's what makes it fun for NC State. And you and I talked a little bit about while we were in DC. Oh, it feels like '87 because they were in DC.
Right.
And that team in '87 had gone into that tournament on a losing streak. And Jim Valvano and Vinny Del Negro and all of the names from that team that came out, they put it together for 3 days, for 3 games. This team, it truly is. When we say it feels like 24 is unique.
It is.
And this team is unique. College basketball is now unique too. Let's not forget that and how that changes. We were lamenting as the season went along, like the lack of identity for NC State and the lack of like just familiarity. Like even going into the season, they had guys who were coming back, but you're sitting here going, well, who is DJ Horn? Who is Jaden Taylor?
Yeah.
With Carolina still, and I suspect RJ Davis does come back. Like they're still going to have guys, and by having Baycott and Davis as long as they've had, they've kind of weathered through what we'll call post-pandemic basketball. Duke goes back to 2011. They were pre-pandemic every year changing their roster. And you'll see another group next year.
Yeah.
At Duke.
It's funny, you said identity, right? And it's something that we talked about a lot at the end of the regular season. And what is NC State's identity? And in a lot of ways, what NC State did or is doing getting to the Final Four is actually showing you what their identity is. It's that March Madness. It's creating this kind of incredible story that people will talk about for a long time. They might not win it all. That's the thing. They might not win it all. I don't expect them to win it all, honestly. I think everybody agrees UConn's just playing on another level. It is what it is. But the one thing that I've consistently said, and I think most people agree with this if they're being reasonable, getting to the Final Four is a success in and of itself. To get through your side of the bracket, to get through the Elite Eight for a regional final, to get there is celebrated. They put a banner up for it and everything, right? So this might be NC State's identity, right? It's this craziness. It's that badness. Carolina has their identity. They're a blue blood in every sense of the term. They have the pedigree. They have the greatest of all time who went to college there, who has that affiliation with UNC. They've got the jump man. It's all tied together, right? They've got the family, the NBAers. You see this all the time when you go to a game at the Smith Center when they put up all their past players and then I'm a Tar Heel. That is their identity. They are a blue blood. There is a standard there. Duke also has a standard that was developed by Mike Krzyzewski. You and I agree that there's pre-Mike Krzyzewski and post-Mike Krzyzewski, and we're living in a post-Mike Krzyzewski Duke brand that has built into this machine that John Shire has at his disposal to reload, go and get recruits like Cooper Flagg and build around that, right? They have a general manager, for heaven's sake. They're just playing on a different level. State can't compete with that. They just can't. For a variety of reasons, they've not been able to compete with that. But this is their identity. Now, I'm not saying that NC State fans should expect a Final Four trip every 40 years. I mean, that's a long ass time. I get that. I understand that. But it's kind of like it's almost like a play on your question about UConn, right?
Yeah.
Your question about UConn and whether they're a blue blood or not, blah, 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 blah. When UConn is in, they're freaking in, man. They're in. And they're probably going to win another championship, right? Would you take that where you have this tournament success and you have these titles, and then the years where you don't, it's been kind of like shoulder shruggy?
You know me.
Right?
You already know my answer.
What do you take? Right. What do you take, right? And for NC State,
doesn't this get to the value of the regular season and how we treat it? Because we've talked a lot about national types and two national types.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have this infatuation with Creighton.
They do,
right?
They do.
They also
and Marquette,
and they love all of these other schools like a Kentucky, like a Duke, who regularly have consistent excellence in the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, what does that matter in college basketball? And that's where I really think Mike Krzyzewski broke everyone's standard.
Mm-hmm.
Because Mike would have years, like I went into yesterday's game and I told all of my state friends who would ask me, what do you think is going to happen? I said, and I'm not doing this to rankle you right now. I'm just trying to make a point. If Mike Krzyzewski was the coach of yesterday's basketball game, NC State's chances of winning would have been like 1%. Like you would have needed that 3-point, the heater from the 3-point line.
Maybe.
You know what I mean?
Maybe.
But without him, right? Because what Mike would do,
you got to remember, Mike Krzyzewski's the same guy that's in a commercial with the guy who knocked him out early.
No, I know.
So it's not like every time Duke's in the tournament, they're running through it.
What he did regularly, what other coaches could not do, he would get, you were there in 2010, you were sitting there for history to see the shot go off of the rim.
Right.
That was far from his best team. That was far from one of the 4 best teams in college basketball that year, let alone the national champions. He had a knack in the 80s in particular of showing up in the Final Four when you were like, well, shit, Duke's here too. Because he would coach his way through it. And he did that better than anyone else, even better than John Wooden in the history of this tournament.
Oh, agree.
So he broke everyone's expectation of, when national types talk about a Chris Mack, cool. You were awesome at Xavier during the regular season. Ultimately, you never went to the Final Four. Sean Miller, cool. You did what you did in Arizona. Very cool. But you didn't do it on the national stage.
Yeah.
You didn't do it in the chaos generator that is the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying about Mike Krzyzewski. He had a knack. Not when he was breathing fire, but when he had a team like this, you would show up, you'd look up and you'd look in the Final Four and you go, what is Duke doing here?
Yeah.
And as Tudor used to say, it's the coaches, stupid.
Yeah.
It's the coaches.
Well, I mean, look, Mike Krzyzewski is one of one in that regard. And I think people understand my feelings on Mike Krzyzewski and that he is the greatest to do it for a variety of different reasons. You mentioned Feels Like 24. We partnered up with Breaking Tea. You've been wanting to make this shirt, so Breaking Tea is going to do it. And it's out right now. Feels Like 24. I was advising with Jamie about some of the differences between the Feels Like 83 shirt, because it's got like the full Tuffy. I was like, yeah, you got to modernize it, because NC State just uses the Tuffy head for most of the things now. So if we're going to make it modern, we got to make it modern. And that's what they went with on the Feels Like 24, because that's really what it is. As you said last night, they are making new memories. Speaking of NC State and the vibes and everything else, people have been trying to like pinpoint, where things started, right?
Yeah.
How did this happen? What has changed for NC State? And some people have pointed out that we were a sacrifice.
Yes.
Right? We did the curse reverse for football. It worked.
190083, the parking space. We did the whole thing.
It worked. I mean, it worked.
Hey, they won 2 games on missed kicks that year. So
that never would have happened without that curse reverse, right? But sometimes to reverse, you need some kind of sacrifice. And we were the sacrifice in that regard. But maybe as we tie this to football, things have been different when Dave Doran got salty at a Steve Smith comment when he said, we're not a basketball school. So shout out to Dave Doran, who was in the building last night. There's a lot going on in this photo for a variety of reasons. You need to tell me when you see it on this photo. But Dave Doran, this is from the NC State football Twitter account, supported Pac men's basketball in Dallas, strengthened the Pac. There's Dave Doran holding up the wolf and everything else.
The best part there is Dave and his family, obviously, and Boo Corrigan and his family. But our friend Steve Young, right there, and and Reynolds and Michael right behind him. But as I said, now go scroll to the left just a little bit.
Okay.
Look who's peering in the upper left corner there.
Oh, there he is. I see him. I see him. Always there. Always lingering.
I said to Steve, how did you get better tickets than Wendell? Even if it's only by one row. How does that happen, sir?
Oh, man. Absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. Let's do a little housekeeping, shall we?
Housekeeping.
It is brought to you by Enovana. Check them out, enovana.com, ENOVANA.com. We do have a jingle. I don't have it in front of me right now, so we're going to have to do this tomorrow when I'm much better prepared for the show than I am today, as I'm hydrating the best that I can.
Yes.
But see, I'm tired. I don't want to clean the house.
No.
You know who's coming to the house tomorrow?
Enovana. People.
So hit them up, ENOVANA.com. Green cleaning. They've got great products. They got great employees. In, out, efficient, leaving your house spotless. I love it. And they can do that for you. Again, that's enovana.com. We mentioned the breaking t-shirts. Please use the referral code that is sitting in our YouTube description and our podcast description. If you go to our Instagram account at OG Triangle Media, I have the link there too. That'll take you to Breaking Tea so you can get that stuff. You use that referral code or that little link. It'll take you to various other stuff while you're there. While you buy it, we get credit for that, which is key. So shout out to everybody who's already purchased stuff from Breaking Tea. At the Rialto last night, it was cool to see some people rocking some OG merch. Love to see that. Big shout out to Zach, who sent us a very nice email about what last night meant to him to be there at the Rialto and everything else. We're cooking up some stuff for the Final Four, which when we have plans ironed out, we'll let you all know. And I mean, heck, we might be back at the Rialto on Saturday night, or at least I will be back at the Rialto on Saturday night. We shall see about that. Big thanks to State Farm. How is our guy Matt Davis doing right now?
I need to check in on that, but I know he was happy. Matt's a Duke fan. I know he was happy when State had one in DC, in part because he called it. But no, you know what would make Matt happy? Give him a call, 919-779-8277. Save yourself some money. We had one listener, Troy, save 40%.
Awesome.
Then his mom got involved and she saved money. So it's really easy to have a conversation. Reach out, 919-779-8277.
Also, big thanks to Whitaker and Hamer. Check them out online, wh.lawyer. When I was in Gatlinburg for spring break, I thought I was going to have to use Whitaker and Hamer for a speeding ticket, but they gave me a warning, which, excellent. They took pity on me as I was trying to get around the national park as things had been closed down. So if you find yourself in that situation, just call them up or hit them up online at wh.lawyer. Again, that's wh.lawyer. All right, let's do a classic bit of old radio, Joe.
Okay.
I love a benchmark,
Yes.
I love a benchmark. I might have switched over to podcasting, but you can't take the need to do a benchmark out of me. So I thought what we could do here is do a winners and losers of the NCAA tournament. And while we've spent a lot of time talking about NC State, Duke and Carolina have some leftover conversations that we can have. I actually wanted to focus on Duke a little bit because I think Duke's fine. Duke is fine. All right. It's a brutal way for Duke to lose now in the Final Four or in the NCAA tournament here as of late. Because you go back to 2022 and they get knocked out by Carolina in the Final Four and Mike Krzyzewski's last game ever. And he's off on his golf cart, all thanks to Caleb Love. Okay. And then with a chance to get to the Final Four, they're up against NC State. This is the third time they play in the month of March. Not just the third time they played that season, in the month of March, because of the way the scheduling broke out and obviously the ACC tournament and everything else. And you get knocked out by this Cinderella team or whatever you want to call it. But I do think that as the season progressed for Duke, it's all part of a learning process for Jon Scheyer, a young coach who's learning how to navigate the pressures of that job to begin with, number one. And as you like to talk about, life in the post-pandemic basketball era where these rosters are shifting and everything else and how he handles it. I thought that Duke, I saw Jeremy Roach, the quote after the game, like, we weren't us. But here was my question. What were you this season? That's the question. When they got the bracket luck against Houston, and Houston's without their best player minutes into the game, I thought to myself, I guess Duke just really wants to say hold our beer when it comes to which was the most random team in the triangle. Carolina was very consistent all year long. We knew what Carolina had to do or what they didn't do if they were to lose a game, right? With Duke, because of the changes in, not the changes, but dealing with injuries, constant lineup grind, where you could see their deficiencies because of where they missed in the portal at the 5 spot, right? And, Ryan Young, speaking of trying to survive out there, Ryan Young doing his thing. Duke was a mixed bag this year, but even Duke's mixed bag results in an Elite Eight trip.
I was going to say, for a program that has what Duke has,
yes,
in more sober moments, I would like
no double birds.
I would like to just ask John what happened in the portal, because he said in the run up to this game, we're a young team. He said, and if you look, we don't really have anybody from the portal.
Yeah.
Because Ryan Young had transferred the previous year. I don't think they'll do that again. Like, you have to identify where your holes are and then fill the holes. And I think if you're Duke, normally you do that in recruiting out of high school.
Yeah.
So the biggest win Duke has is getting Cooper Flagg. Think about that. You're UConn. You're absolutely killing people like a murder ball machine. You win a national championship. You're on your way to another one. And what on earth do you have to do to get Cooper Flagg? Like, what do you have to do?
Yeah.
Right? Duke is still that guy.
Duke, man.
Duke's still that guy.
They are.
When it comes to recruiting.
And
so, but now the question for John, you can't put yourself into that situation again.
Yeah, I think they know that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think they know that. This is what I always, people want ready baked microwaved results. Okay, I know that's a cliche to say, but there's this attitude that some other coach could come in and do exactly what Mike Krzyzewski is doing, just plug and play.
Right.
No. We just talked about Mike Krzyzewski and how different he was. So the play always at Duke was to allow almost a similar trajectory of young coach, let him learn at a high level with every tool available to you. And I give John Shire and that Duke staff a lot of credit where things ended poorly for them at the end of the season. Okay. Very uncharacteristic to not only get swept by Carolina the way that they did and not look like a tough Duke team. And then they get knocked out by NC State, which I thought was one of these big John Shire finally having it, fed up with a team. And you and I saw it. It was very much you got yourself in this shit. You can get yourself out of this shit. You all don't want to listen. And while I kind of rolled my eyes at the whole, team meeting after the fact, look, whenever it clicks, especially at this point in college basketball. So I'd give Duke a lot of credit for bouncing back and looking the way that they looked. They just happened to run into a state team that was destined to get to the damn Final Four, playing their best basketball right now. And DJ Burns having an absolute epic performance against them. Duke's going to be fine. They'll learn those lessons, which kind of gets me.
But it's so hard. Think about it, even with Banchero,
sure,
right? Who was in that class with Tatum and Zion. So I think we're all anticipating Cooper Flagg to be of that ilk.
He should be,
right? Not all 5-star players are equal,
but he's on.
But I think he's on that level.
To be on that.
So you have to take advantage of that. Now, I suspect, without knowing in detail, that they'll have a summer tour, kind of like that team went to Canada. The Palos team went to Canada. Zion's team went to Canada. I think Palos team was able to do another trip, but they'll have have their off-season tour. They'll have a little bit more bonding. But the truth of the matter is they need to add 2 players in the portal. One has to be an older big and one has to be an older shooter. I think Duke's biggest deficiency the last few years has been from the 3-point line. And as we've seen, and even Dalton Connect yesterday tried with Tennessee, you got to have more than one guy who can make it. When the money's on the table,
it never develops.
And the same thing with Carolina to a certain extent this year, right?
Well, the Carolina conversation is different to me. Going forward, I think Carolina's the most intriguing, right? Well, because NC State.
Because speaking of people in the portal, like they're going to need to get a big out of the portal.
But it goes beyond that. Whereas State with Kevin Keats is living basketball today, where your roster is going to change year to year. And you're trying to piece these things together and hopefully it'll work. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Like, man, Steve Forbes is in the same boat at Wake Forest. Okay.
So is Miami, by the way, who went to the Final Four the year before.
Duke, as we just illustrated, they're just basically in their own mode. Carolina's actually the most intriguing one because what are you going to do next year what is the core for North Carolina? Because I don't know. Do you really think RJ Davis is going to come back?
Yes.
Do we know that for a fact, by the way?
I do not know that for a fact.
Okay.
But if you were to ask me what he's going to do, he'll make more money playing basketball for North Carolina next year.
Yeah.
There's no shame in that.
No,
like,
no,
why
no,
do we?
no.
What I'm saying, like with Oscar Schriebe and Armando Baycott, and mostly it's bigs, right? Because bigs don't exactly translate to the NBA right now. I mean, RJ Davis, whatever they list him at, he's probably 6'1".
My
It's
question,
hard to be who he is in the NBA at 6'1".
but at some point you do want to move on. And I am
Sure.
I am curious if, and you want to play with your guys, right?
Yeah.
So I am curious with RJ, with this particular group of guys that he had, do you find yourself going into next year with all these young dudes that you didn't come up with, these young dudes that aren't, there is an age difference at that point. How old is RJ now? 20, what is he now?
It would still only be his 5th year. It's not like it's a 6-year situation.
I get that, but you know, there's a difference between an 18-year-old and a 22-year-old,
Sure.
23-year-old, right? So my point is that I am curious if RJ just kind of looks at, this was supposed to be the year with Armando Baycott. It didn't pan out. Now it's just time to move on to the next chapter of what I'm doing. And then how does Hubert Davis deal with that? How does Hubert Davis piece a team together? Because
they have top end McDonald's. Speaking of true 5 stars,
right?
They have high end athletes coming in.
So how do you? This is in the same situation that John Shire's in, where you've got this high level talent coming in. What do you do in the portal again to piece around that?
Yeah,
Hubert Davis has shown you the high and the low of that, right? Where last year they tried to put some pieces together, didn't work. They didn't make the tournament. Obviously, there was success this year by bringing in Harrison Ingram and Cormac Ryan. It fit perfectly with what they had with Armando Baycott and RJ Davis. And also the other thing too about Carolina is the development of Elliot Cadeau. Because Cadeau, as high as
he has to take a step.
As high as we were on Cadeau, and we saw flashes of it, it wasn't consistent enough. So what's this offseason going to be like for him? And how does that step up for next year? Because I don't think anything changes. But
that could be old school. Because remember, guys used to make their biggest jump from freshman year to sophomore year. We just haven't seen a guy at that level stick around and play that sophomore year.
So in terms of, winners and losers, I mean, obviously we can point out that the ACC was a winner once again with the success in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, shout out to Clemson.
I mean, I wanted them to beat Alabama so that Dabo could do something, but you can't have everything, right? Can't have everything. So then the ACC was ultimately a winner here. The biggest loser of the NCAA tournament, honestly, is our business. Our business is the biggest loser. And we've spent a lot of time going back and forth with how people talk about the ACC. We spent a lot of time almost like responding to what we see nationally. When I say that our business is a loser, it is not good when you do not trust national folks, or you don't trust media, or you think they're coming at it with a bias. It was infuriating to me to see otherwise respected national guys going out of their way, getting too caught up in the social media dunking stuff, that it actually was a detriment to not only their standing, but in general, how people view media and things like that. That sucked. That sucked. And I also think of all the losers, net was the biggest of the losers with this NCAA tournament. I think we have enough data now. We have enough years with it. And we've seen what's happened in the NCAA tournament, that something is not clicking with how we talk about college basketball in the regular season and what we see in the NCAA tournament. And people are having a hard time processing that. I think it starts with how you talk about the college basketball season throughout. We can make fun of the college football playoff committee all day, but at least we know where it stands week in, week out, rather than having these tastemakers try to explain to you what's going on with bracketology. And it's interesting. The algorithm sometimes knows. There was a clip of former Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, and say what you want about Jeff Bezos. It's not really here or there to have a comment on a man who made a rocket that looked like a dick. But the point is, he told this story. It did. I mean, you saw it, right? I mean, talk about
aren't all rockets inherently phallic?
But this one,
aren't you proud of me? I used my own vocabulary there.
Good for you. This one was like projecting.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, as somebody who's built model rockets of actual rockets from back in the day, not all of them look like dicks. Okay, that one looks like a straight up dick. I don't know what else to say. And I don't know if it was projection or not, but it is what it is. I digress. But Bezos tells this story about how the metrics get to a point where the anecdotes are correct and the metrics are not. And it had something to do with the customer service line and how long people were on hold for the customer service. And the guy who was arguing, like, no, our metrics say people are only on this call for 2 or 3 minutes. He's like, yeah, but we get this anecdotal evidence of people saying they've been on for 20, 30, 50 minutes. So Bezos tells the story. He goes, I just called the customer service line right then and there. Like, let's find out. And sure enough, it went longer. And but again, the bottom line is the anecdotes usually are the ones to believe over the overall metrics. And I think that's the case with net, right? We can look at all this anecdotal evidence about how teams are undervalued during the regular season or underrated during the regular season. And when it comes to tournament time or when you play these head-to-head games, what ends up happening? Like, I'm sorry, I can't unsee the Big 12's record against the ACC. I can't, especially when you put the regular season and the NCAA tournament together. You can give me all the metrics you want about the Big 12 all day. But when it comes to when I watch the games against these two conferences, against these two teams, what ends up happening, Joe? Like, at some point, you have to go with what you see. And I think that's probably the biggest loser in all of this. And people have questioned the metrics, and I'll be curious to see if people want to go about changing the metrics or being more transparent about what the metrics are. And then there we can have a different conversation.
Listen, the math's always going to math.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But how do you change a conversation about the regular season without trying to project? It's really hard. Like,
Yeah.
I don't necessarily, when you say without adding bias, that's where we get into this situation. It is one thing to just praise Iowa State or praise Houston or praise any of these other programs for doing what they're doing. But it's another to knock like an entire league because you want to fish out your own points.
Yeah.
I'll get back to Iowa State. Virginia Tech beat Iowa State. Like, Virginia Tech was an NIT team and they beat your precious champion.
Yes.
Like, but that's part of it. And that's what I hope is the takeaway when you say the net. Iowa State, as you know, they allegedly figured out the net, right? By playing bad teams and beating them by a lot. Well, I think Carolina is really the one who figured out the net by playing good teams and being rewarded for playing good teams. And I think Jim Phillips has the right idea here by playing fewer conference games. But I don't want to see those fewer conference games turning into games against 300 plus in the Ken Palm.
No.
I want to see more meaningful games played out of the league. And that's where I think the ACC needs to get creative. This is a good first step for them. But I'll reiterate my points to Jim Phillips that we made 2 years ago, which are you should play your SEC challenge at the end of January. That helps with your data. That helps with your comparison points. And you should play more games on campus. Next year, Duke goes to Arizona. Awesome. Let's see some more of that. You know, Tennessee and NC State played this year once already. Who knew? We almost had a Final Four preview. But those games should be played on campus. And I would like to see those schools do that with more regularity. Chuckle before we get to this ad break, and I'm not betraying anyone's trust here, that I saw Jim Phillips. I got banished yesterday from the Rialto by my family.
Yeah, I know.
For the Mojo.
Yeah, I know.
And then when I had texted them from Oakwood Pizza Box, they were like, do not come back. And I said, okay. Then James even called Jackson, and Jackson was like, do not under any circumstance. And James was like, what are we supposed to do? I was like, all right, fine. We'll go sit down. We'll watch the state game at Oakwood Pizza Box. And I see Jim Phillips with what I thought was a red and white tie on.
It looked like it, yeah.
Apparently it was orange because I had texted him. I said, that is a bold choice, sir. But I guess the suit was more Duke blue.
Yeah.
Because remember, the tie is usually representative of the ACC team that's playing. But apparently it was orange.
Okay.
And so I won't give away. So he started getting into Jim Phillips mode, telling me about the great things about the ACC. I'm like, listen, I go, you don't need to tell me. But I said, the preface was, I heard you were critical of me. I said, yes, I was rightfully critical of you, but I'm glad to see that you're out there promoting the league in the way that you are. Good. That's good on you, man. That's what you need to be doing.
I'm glad you're communicating with the ACC.
Trying.
I haven't.
Trying.
I might not.
Hey, I love that. I heard you were critical of me,
buddy.
Come on, sir. Come on,
Jim.
It's okay.
It's okay, Jim.
It's okay.
We know you watched. It's okay. It's okay. We're all adults. I think that's kind of been my problem lately about this kind of stuff. Like, we're all adults here,
Yeah.
We're all adults.
Yeah, reach out. So, hey, I didn't like that.
Cool.
Got it. Noted, man.
Noted. I'm perfectly okay with that. We just see it from a different point of view. Speaking of points of view, you need an actual point of view when it comes to real estate.
No, you need help.
You need help with this. This is where
Don't
Hometown
do this
Realty
stuff on your own.
This is where don't be like me. Like, I'm doing reels on my own. I dabble on it. But if I try to sell a house by myself, forget it. That's ridiculous. That's where Hometown Realty comes in. Check them out. myhtr.com. Again, that's myhtr.com. I'm feeling it this morning, and I'm gonna need some breeze through coffee when this podcast is over.
I'm gonna need some snacks. I'm gonna need some Gatorade.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna need something, sir.
I might need to dump the Celsius in the coffee.
A little double action.
Yeah, that's not an Americano. That would be a Boca Raton. That's what that would be. Celsius is from Boca Raton. So that's what we'll call it. We'll call it a Boca Raton, where I dump a Celsius into an espresso.
Oh, now wait a second.
And we go from there.
Are you really going to drink the Loco?
Yeah, we're almost at 7,000.
Wow.
I think that'll be on tomorrow's show, actually. So I got
For real?
Yeah,
I'm looking at the ticker over your head. That's what I'm.
Yeah, no, we're
trying
getting
to come
close
up
to
with.
that. We're also scheduled to now that I see the Canes, we're scheduled to talk to Rod Brindamore this week.
Nice.
Because what do you think that family house's dynamic is like right now?
Pumped.
Stay going to the Final Four. Come on now.
Pumped.
So anyway, go to Breeze Through. Locations across the triangle, locations across North Carolina. And of course, big thanks to the Butcher's Market for sponsoring us. Check out thebutchersmarkets.com. Maybe you want to get your Final Four prep by grilling a steak. If it's a 6 o'clock game, enjoy the day, get grilled, have that stuff laid out, ready to go by the time tip-off happens, or you wait for after the game to fire up the grill for a celebratory Final Four win. I don't know. Or you want to eat your feelings. You could do that at the Butcher's Market. So check out thebutchersmarkets.com. Mitch Northam joining us now on the Heiser Automotive Group hotline, WUNC NPR. He's all over women's college hoops, and you saw one of the weirdest things that I think we've seen in college basketball: 3-point lines that were not the same on either end of the court. Look, it sucks that women's basketball is having this moment, right? And we get another big moment tonight with LSU and Iowa. But it's a really bad look when the court that they're playing on isn't correctly measured. And it went like this for a couple of games, and the coaches had to agree, yeah, we'll just roll with this rather than waiting an hour to get it right. So you were there for that. How was that all unfolding in real time?
Yeah, I was in Albany, and the South Carolina game, their win over Oregon State has just ended, and we get up into the press room, we look at the TV, and Wes Moore and Vic Schaefer are out there measuring heel toe, and the referees have the measuring tape out, and it's really a mess. I can't describe it any other way than that. So much about the tournament this year has been about just various issues and problems from like an administrative site and officiating. We had at NC State in the first round, that referee that was pulled at halftime because she was an alum of Chattanooga. Right. We had the thing, with Utah where they had to stay in a hotel in Idaho where they had to face racism. We had the thing here in Albany where all of a sudden, Hannah Hidalgo's stud piercing in her nose, which she has played with all year, was suddenly a problem. And she had to miss 4 minutes of the game while they, got like mechanic tools out to sort of pull it out of her nose there on the sideline. And this is just the latest. And I think if you're looking for someone to blame, it has to be Lynn Holzman, who is, the leader of women's college basketball at the NCAA level. And she was the one who was in charge in 2021 when all those issues arose in the bubble, all the discrepancies, and sort of ignited that report on equality that we had to do. And So yeah, I think Vic Schaefer said it yesterday. Only in women's basketball. So there are some things. I mean, strides have been made, but like the NCAA still has a big way to go, and just like making sure that like dumb stuff like this doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's slipshod in their details.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is basic stuff. This is 101 running a tournament, which normally is the NCAA strength, believe it or not. But Mitch, I hate, maybe hate's not the right word. I like tonight that LSU and Iowa get their moment. They're on the stage tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I dislike it though for NC State and for South Carolina yesterday that they didn't have the stage and the moment to themselves. These tournaments, I get it. There has to be some moments that are concurrent, but I feel like it should be more of like tonight where the women get their own day, their own time to shine. The interest in these games is such that it can carry the day. So why is ESPN, why did they do that to us yesterday as basketball fans, kind of make the women's game kind of almost like a little bit of an afterthought compared to the men's tournament?
Yeah, they kind of made it as like an appetizer, right?
Yeah.
I don't know why ESPN chooses to sort of go head to head with the men all the time, instead of like just putting them in different, like the day is a long day. We have many different time slots. Friday was the worst when both the NC State men and women played it literally almost the exact same time. I think the men tipped off 20 minutes before the women, but commercial breaks and everything else. You basically, if you're a State fan, you had to watch two games at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I fail to understand it. Tonight is going to be great where, they really do get the whole stage, and there's two great games and with really big stars and, LSU and Angel Reese, Iowa and Caitlin Clark, and on the West Coast, USC and Juju Watkins, and UConn and Paige Beckers. So, tonight's going to be a great night for the game. I mean, might like come close to those, viewership records that we saw in last year's Final Four. It's kind of a shame that they didn't set up the brackets in a way that, LSU and Iowa would meet again in the Final Four instead of the Elite Eight in Albany. But here we are, and it'll be fun.
Yeah, Joe likes to talk about bracket luck all the time, and NC State certainly has experienced a little bit of that bracket luck, being on the right side of this thing to get to the Final Four.
Yeah,
Louisville owes them a Final Four appearance.
So it's interesting. Jamie over at Breaking Tea had sent me a shirt idea where I think they're going to go out with it here pretty soon. But it's I got no problems putting it on the screen here. It's a shirt that says "Why not both?" Right? It's not why not us?
Why not both?
Why not both? Right? And that's kind of where NC State is right now, which is pretty insane that both of them are in the Final Four at the same time. But it's been. Whereas NC State on the men's side with Kevin Keatts, this is a complete surprise. On West,
this has been the process for
Wes Moore. Yeah, for Wes Moore with the ACC championships, consistency in the regular season. This is finally the payoff for a program that has been excellent for several years.
Yeah, they've been knocking at the door. And I think everyone thought that the year that they were going to do it was going to be 2022. And then you talk about bracket luck, and that was not the year that they got bracket luck. And maybe that was some direct influence from the NCAA committee, where they had to go play in UConn's backyard as a number one seed. But it's a little bit of a surprise, I think, just because this NC State team was picked to finish 8th in the ACC. They were unranked when they beat UConn. But then sort of as the season progressed, I think, like when you go into the ACC tournament in Greensboro, I think they sort of became the favorite there with the injury to Elizabeth Kitley on Virginia Tech. Obviously, they lost to Notre Dame, but I think they showed like, all right, well, like if they get placed in the right bracket here, like they could make a run. And they've done that. And I mean, yesterday's game was really, after the second quarter, not really a contest. Isaiah James set the world on fire in the first half, and in the second half, they kind of went to River Baldwin. I think she had 16 points in the second half, sort of slowed it down and, just hammered Texas inside. So, and a big, I assume an important win for Wes Moore, considering he's a Texas guy, born and raised there, huge Dallas Cowboys fan. So that was a huge win for them, and sort of, I think the signature kind of win of his 11 years in charge of that program now.
I just think State's guards, I mean, we talked about it after that Louisville game. They had the right recipe, but you're right about Baldwin too. Like, it can't just be the two guards on the outside. You have to have the support on the inside. So, do you have a prediction for tonight? I know Kim Mulkey and LSU have become somewhat of the labeled as the villain, and there's been a whole lot of drama. And I think Kim is doing what all great coaches do, and she's galvanizing her players by, kind of rallying to a cause. But this was the game we wanted to see once Angel Reese did the ring.
We got it.
Yes.
We get it, right? Like, this is it. This is what we want. And this speaks to the continuity, though, in women's basketball that I've always talked about. Like, if you miss old school basketball, well, the women are more likely to give you that because there's more continuity to their rosters.
Yeah, if you want the rematches between star players, you get it on the women's side, because on the men's side, so often there's the one and dones, and well, I'm poorly in this year and I'm poorly in that year. Not there aren't transfers in women's sport too, but it's they have definitely embraced this villain role. I mean, Kim Mulkey attacking multiple newspapers this weekend. One warranted, the other not so much.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. What happened in the LA Times, what you're referencing, the imagery that they portrayed was unfortunate.
Yeah, old school, like good versus evil.
Yeah,
like, they're not evil. You might not like them, but they're not evil.
Like, come on, like let's modernize ourselves.
Yeah, it's very much not what you want.
I thought the Washington Post article, I mean, I kind of got bored by it after a little bit of time. It was a long feature, and I was like, where is this going? And then, but I think that's the fault of Kim Mulkey for trying to portray it as though it was some sort of hit piece. No, it was a deep dive on somebody who has become this iconic women's basketball coach, or just iconic coach in general. And like, I disagreed with Nancy Armour of USA Today saying that an article like this or a feature like this would never be written by a men's coach. I'm like, excuse me? I've read this kind of piece about Bobby Knight multiple times.
Yes.
So that's where I see the similarity there. And I didn't think it was unfair to Kim Mulkey.
No, and the thing about like the men's coaches, like, we don't have a men's coach right now that's like Kim Mulkey. I mean, she is the cartoon character villain that I think men's college basketball could kind of use right now.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have Bobby Knight anymore. Those kind of explosive pieces have been done about men's coaches. I think the reason why she sort of went on the offensive ahead of that story coming out was because she didn't have any control over it, and she knew they were talking to her estranged family members and disgruntled former players. That was my read on it, and she is a person who is used to being in control of everything, and for once in her life did not. But yeah, as far as the prediction goes, despite everything about LSU being the villain, I kind of think they might win tonight. I think LSU is certainly bigger than Iowa. I think that they've listened to all the noise about, Caitlin Clark and all the attention that she's got. And, while they beat Iowa in last year's Final Four in the national championship game, I think they are the underdogs tonight. If you look at the lines, I think they're 2.5-point underdogs, LSU is. I just think they're kind of a more well-rounded and better team. Now, Caitlin Clark is a supernova, and so if Caitlin Clark goes off for 45, okay, maybe that makes things differently. But I think Angel Reese is going to have a really good game inside, and I think that Flau'jae Johnson and Haley Van Lith will be motivated to disrupt Caitlin Clark a little bit.
Mitch Northrum, WUNC, NPR, we appreciate the time. We appreciate your help on the women's college basketball side of things. We will talk to you later, sir.
Thanks.
Big thanks to Mosquito Authority for sponsoring Ovius and Giglio. Check them out, bugsbite.com. Mosquito Authority, Pest Authority, you can bundle and save. I was using this past weekend to get some yard work done and, leaning into being 45, Joe. I think I need to get a little hat, little stovepipe, little stovepipe, right? When you put tobacco in.
Yeah.
And then, with my real mower. I got fed up, right? With my gas mower is busted, just completely busted. I tuned it up, I changed the oil, and then when I put gas in, gas was leaking out of the tank. I was like, all right, well, forget this. So I went to go see if I could find a new lawnmower, and it's like $500 to like minimum. I'm like, no way, man. Plus my yard's not that big. So I bought a Scott's Blade, like old school.
No, you didn't.
Real mower, right? I bought one.
Wow.
I bought one. Let me tell you, I'm going to be yoked. I'm going to be like, I got flabby arms as it is. Like my P90X days are way behind me.
I thought you were going to say you got one of those with the battery powered ones.
No,
like a normal person.
I got a push mower. Wow. An actual push with the blades. Anytime it gets a little acorn or a stick, I like stop. I'm like, ugh! I get stuck. I have to like undo it. Anyway, I got one. I love it. I absolutely love it. All this is to say, I'll be spending a lot of time in my backyard as I'm getting yoked on the real mower. And Pest Authority is going to help me out with that and not having critters swarm me when I'm doing this yard work.
You should get a pipe and a sickle. Get out there and just swing away, man.
Now
if you really
talking.
Want to get yoked.
Now we're talking. So go to bugsbite.com. Big thanks to Two Roosters. I know how many do we have an update on the gallons of the Tuffy tracks?
I got a text from Jared in the madness.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, Jared is a State fan. So that's part of this. But he said, yes, I need to cut more cookie dough for this Tuffy tracks, keeping it around until next weekend. Unreal run by both the men and the women. Yes, Jared. Yes, the Tuffy tracks, they have to be the key to all of this. So everyone has their own superstition, but once Two Roosters started to produce the Tuffy tracks, State's unbeaten. I don't make the rules, man. I don't make the rules.
So head on out. tworoosters.com is the website. Find out their flavors, their rotating stuff. And of course, you got the tracks. So, one thing, well, actually, we'll do it in Hey Joe, because I actually thought something was funny that happened. I heard from the governor's office. So we'll get to that in Hey Joe in just a little bit. Okay. So let's do DraftKings and the OG Gambling Syndicate first. Use that promo code OG24. I maintain that my favorite part of DraftKings is the tailor-made parlays that they present you. And I continue to just put $5 down on the chance that something will play out. And you know what happened last night, Joe? I won a parlay. I won a 6-leg parlay thanks to NC State last night. Big thanks to DJ Burns. Okay.
Credit where it's due, sir.
Credit to I want to have a conversation about this later about what this is about. And it's for entertainment. It's to have some fun. And I've been enjoying my experience with DraftKings and putting $5 down. And hey, look at that, winning a parlay. So you can use that promo code OG24. But we don't have any basketball tonight.
I need to introduce.
I don't even have hockey tonight.
I need to introduce you to a new concept,
and that is
the Nerfy.
What's the Nerfy?
The Nerfy is no runs first inning bet.
Oh, I see.
Just as I've explained to you that the true degenerates bet on the Ivy League.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball is for the real ones.
All right.
Sure.
Okay.
The real one. You could actually bet on every at bat in baseball on the live line. But one of the pre-flop bets is, will there be any runs scored in the first inning? And no is my bet for tonight between the Angels, who no longer have Shohei Ohtani. So I'm really not sure how they're going to win any baseball games without Shohei Ohtani. They won one yesterday. Yeah. They're playing Miami, who's 0-4 and off to a little bit of a slow start themselves.
Yeah.
So we're going Nerfy, no run first inning in Angels Marlins. That game's at 6:00, -105. I like that juice.
All right.
Give it to me.
I'm with it. So we have DraftKings. We've been enjoying it throughout all of March, and now we're in April and getting ready for the Final Four. And you can download the app today. It's the official betting partner of NASCAR as well. It's all live here in North Carolina, and use that promo code OG24. Again, that's OG24. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use that promo code. Bet $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. I know I used my bonus bets when everything went live on a couple of futures. I had picked Duke to win their region. I was not expecting NC State to go on this run. I was almost right about Duke winning their region, but that's another story altogether. That's what I used my bonus bets on. I don't think my Drake May bonus bet's going to cash, though. Basically,
I still like it.
I like
we'll
the
odds,
see.
man.
We'll see. But that's the kind of stuff you could do with your bonus bets, right? Just take a couple of flyers, and it's all on DraftKings Sportsbook with code OG24. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 877-718-5543 or visit morethanagame.nc.gov. 21 plus, North Carolina only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Deposit and eligibility restrictions apply. Terms at DraftKings.com/sportsbook/NC. NASCAR is not a sponsor of this promotion and used under license. Again, use that promo code OG24. So I missed this last night as I was trying to hydrate and get some.
I did not.
and get some content out. But the governor's office, Governor Roy Cooper, had tweeted out our guy Jake Jams, the very famous shirtless dude, spinning his shirt at Carter Finley Stadium, and after NC State had beat Duke, he had posted that GIF, and you just gone, no, sir. No, sir. And as Dimitri points out, Giglio stands against stolen valor.
No, sir.
Well, it's interesting. I busted out our last visit to the governor's mansion when North Carolina wasn't in the NCAA tournament to do the full Homer Simpson.
Yeah.
It just so happened that the Simpsons continue to be right about things. In the episode where Homer Simpson is celebrating St. Patrick's Day and the NCAA tournament and is holding up an NC State pennant while wearing a Duke shirt and a mug that says sober on it. What the wild part was, they had a little time of day when they went to the clip, and it was March 31st, Duke and NC State. So the Simpsons was right about this game happening on March 31st. So I busted out that photo of Governor Cooper having the Duke shirt and the state pennant that you had given him. So I guess he's just trying to get on the vibes, right? But you said no. And I heard from the governor's office that, that they had absolute joy in posting that. Absolute joy in posting that. And that it got you. And that it got you.
It's funny. Yesterday at the Rialto, obviously most of the people there were State fans.
Yes.
There was
shout out to Chris, who was there in his Duke gear early. He left at halftime.
There was a younger Carolina fan there. And the kid couldn't have been much more than 6 or 7, but he had his Carolina jersey on. And I said to him, rep your school always, man.
Yeah, man.
You be you. Always rep your school.
Mm-hmm.
That is the only thing I ask of the double Tar Heel, who just so happens to be the man who runs this state. Rep your school, man. Always rep your school.
So we'll get out of here on some YouTube comments from our YouTube exclusive After Dark after NC State beat Duke.
Woo!
So
this is like going through your phone.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, a little
Who did I
anxiety.
text last night?
Yeah, there was a little anxiety last night. And I went back and I watched this morning and I was like, especially at the end, I'm like, damn, I was drunk. I really was drunk last night. Shit. Okay. From Bradley, I think this is probably the most important point here. Every one of us who was very critical of Keats had every right to be heading into the ACC tournament. No secret. Things were going terrible. Nobody saw this coming. Keats had to make the adjustments. He did, and he's still rolling. We have the right to change our minds and give Keats all the credit he deserves. When pushed to the brink, you see what you are made of. And this gets to what I was saying earlier about the Jim Phillips text exchange, right? Like, I see where you were critical of us. Yes, it's okay to be critical.
Yeah.
And, and I'll get this every so often now. I'll get a comment on YouTube or Instagram about one of the episodes that we did where we talked about Kevin Keats' job. And it's a lot of people going, oh, this aged poorly. Y'all, stop it. Because not a single one of you thought this was going to happen. You might have thought, hey, I'll win a couple games in the ACC tournament, and that'll change the conversation. Cool. But to go into the comment section and be like, old take exposed, you're telling on yourself because you didn't even believe this. I am sure that if I went through your phone and you were going back and forth with your state buddies, that I'm sure there was a forget or any point this season, right? In fact, the only person who I will say gets any level of credit when it comes to this is Josh Goodson.
Yes.
He's the only one.
The OG.
Okay? The only one. I had to mute his ass. I thought I had him muted already, but no, I had to mute his ass because every morning after a loss, he was like tweeting through it, right? He was the only one. Anybody else getting in my mentions or getting in the comment sections for OG Triangle Media stuff, bringing up that old clip, y'all, let's be honest with ourselves about where that was. But the ultimate point is correct. You can change your mind.
Yeah.
The data changes. Kevin Keats earned this, all right? Back against the wall, questions about your job, you shut him up. That's sports, right? And that's probably the thing that's bothered me the most about all this stuff lately about, oh, well, it's bracket luck and, well, NC State didn't have to do that. Y'all, that's sports. That's why you watch. This stuff all happens in real time. That's why we're all hooked on it in the grand scheme of things. Otherwise, you just sound like an SEC podcaster. You sound like an SEC regional talk show host that never wants to play any games.
Right.
Okay? It's as simple as that. We're the best and we're going to win every game. So why even play them? That's what you sound like. Either that or move to Europe where the table matters. But this is America, baby. And we do it with tournaments and championships. That's what we do. From Marcel. Why would you invite this loud guy in such a historic episode of your podcast? He absolutely ruined your chemistry. That's Brinson. Brinson's being Brinson.
Will was on it, man. It's okay.
Well, the reason why I wanted Brinson there is because I wanted to capture the insanity of it all.
Oh, yeah.
That was the whole point of last night's episode, man. Last night's episode was just to go crazy. Joe G was on one. Yeah, you were. You were. From Kayla Giglio, flipping Duke fans. The double bird was not on my bingo card, but I'm here for it. Thanks for speaking for state fans everywhere.
See?
This is our time. This is our time. Yeah, the double birds was a lot. Although I saw do we have to do like a you and DJ DJ Horn?
Same energy.
Together, the same energy? Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for today's show. Thanks for riding with us throughout the entirety of March. Was an awesome month for the podcast. I always kind of viewed the ACC tournament and the rest of the NCAA tournament as like a proof of concept of what we're doing, being able to do things in real time, react immediately to the games, all that stuff has been a lot of fun to do. Clearly, y'all think that as well, as we've surpassed over 1 million views on YouTube, just all of YouTube. And then the thing that I care the most about, and that is the podcast listenership. We have surpassed 1 million listens, downloads, and views between the audio-only podcast and obviously what we do on YouTube for the podcast specifically. So that's ahead of where I thought we would be in a year of doing this. And we haven't even hit a year yet of doing the podcast.
We're
almost there, a month to go. But the fact that we're able to do that in 11 months, I'll take it. It's very, very cool. So I thank you for that. If you haven't given us 5 stars, what are you waiting for? Positive vibes only. Let's go. 5 stars only. Positive vibes only.
Today anyway.
Yeah. I need the positive vibes today. Tomorrow, I think the 4 Loco comes out tomorrow.
I better have the paddles ready.
Let's go.